My dad grew up in western Pennsylvania, in Washington, Pennsylvania specifically, and that was a hotbed for high school wrestling back in those days. He won the WPIAL, which was a big deal to kids in western Pennsylvania, and was second in the state in Pennsylvania. After high school, my dad joined the Army, and he was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to continue wrestling on the Army wrestling training team. He was wrestling Greco-Roman and freestyle, and he won the All-Army Championships. And he really went from being a very good high school wrestler to an Olympic caliber wrestler. And he made his first Olympic team, won the Olympic trials in 1956. 56 was the first year we fielded a team. He was the first guy out there. He won the match.
And the coach of the 1956 U.S. Olympic team that was a man named Joe Scalzo. And Mr. Scalzo was also the head wrestling coach at the University of Toledo. So after the Olympics, he brought my father back to Toledo, and the rest is history.
His reputation as a wrestler was simply outstanding. He was at the University of Toledo, and the first time I ever saw him wrestle was in the finals of the national tournament. He wrestled a guy by the name of Grace Simons, and it was an exciting match. And I was excited because I was, for the first time, watching a film of collegiate wrestlers who would later on become Olympic wrestlers, and they actually were very instrumental in my desire to be Olympic champion.
He loved to wrestle the big schools like Michigan and you know, any of the other schools that were nationally ranked. I also think he had great competitive drive, a real competitive spirit, and he really believed he could win, and he wanted very badly to win.
My dad made 3 Olympic teams, or competed in 3 Olympic games as a Greco-Roman wrestler, but he also made the freestyle team in 1960. So he made the Greco team in 1956, 1960, 1964. He made the freestyle team in 1960 as well, but he had to pick one or the other. He ended up picking Greco because he felt like it gave him the best chance to medal. But I think he was very proud of the fact that he made 4 Olympic teams.
The main thing I remember about my father's Olympic teams are the names of these great wrestlers, these amazing wrestlers. The name Doug Blueball, the name Bobby Douglas.
Dickie Wilson kind of took me under his wings and was always very helpful when I was in training camp with him.
In 1964, he finished 4th in the Olympics despite a severe knee injury leading up to the Olympic Games. That was the best performance that he had.
Dickie Wilson was one of my favorite people. He was really a great competitor. He was the second American to make 3 Olympic teams. He was second only to Grace Simons in the NCAA championships. I think if Gray hadn't been in the weight class, and arguably Gray was one of the greatest wrestlers I think ever, but if he hadn't been in the weight class, Dickie would have certainly been an NCAA champion. He was a team captain of the 64 Olympic team. First year I was on the Olympic team, his 3rd Olympic team. And he was just a great leader, real quiet, humble, easygoing guy, but a very intense person.
My dad had a great personal international career. He was a very accomplished wrestler. But I thought it was very telling that he was, as a coach, he was as proud of his coaching days as he was of his personal career.
Now, the Scalzo family goes back wrestling. It's just wrestling. So we had a big living room over in Westmoreland, and Dick would come over, and being about 10 years old at the time, I got to be the throwing dummy. We move on to my junior year in college, and Dick is still throwing me around. He's my coach now. And the one thing that was said before was, he was tough. He was tough. And up to about my weight, which was 137 at the time, long time ago, he was something, he could pace himself to just beat the bejesus out of us.
One of my dad's most satisfying times in his coaching career was 1971. That was the year that he coached Greg Wojciechowski, the great Wojo, to NCAA championship in the heavyweight division.
He led me to 3 NCAA finals and 1 championship in 1971. But beyond being an outstanding coach for me, he was a role model, a mentor, and he was my hero. I met him the first time I was 9 years old at the Torrio Health Club, and he was training for the 1960 Olympic Championships. Other kids in my neighborhood or friends in my era, their heroes were Mickey Mantle, Henry Aaron, Jimmy Brown in football, and Johnny Unitas. My hero is Dick Wilson.
Always respected him. He was always very respectful, not only of wrestlers, but he was just a class act, and there's not enough kind things that I can say about Dickie Wilson. I was saddened at his passing.
My dad loved wrestling both as an athlete and as a coach. He loved the community of wrestling. He would have felt so honored to be part of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. It would have meant so much to him.
My father had such deep respect for wrestling, for wrestlers, and for the family of wrestlers across the country and in fact across the world. And he would have been so honored and so, I think, overjoyed to be included among the most elite members of that family.
My dad would have felt that this honor was the greatest that he ever received in the sport of wrestling.